For the most part, good. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Sorry.
Can we go ahead and call this meeting to order? Roll call.
Christy Richards.
Here.
Bill Weber.
Here.
Debbie Porter.
Here.
Richard Grice.
Here.
Rodney Wood.
Here.
Dennis Carey.
Here.
Cheryl Gill.
Here.
And Vogel.
Okay, since this is a special meeting, we just got one or two topics here to talk about, but I'm going to put public comment out here first. So if anybody's got something they want to say, now's the time to do it.
I have a comment.
Okay?
I was told, I wasn't at this last meeting, but I was told that there was a comment that was made that you didn't care about the ISO rating because it was not a federal agency. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
But that, you don't understand that that rating, if it is low, it raises our insurance. They've been trying desperately to get the rating up, and by putting these...
I understand that. I do. I'm
So-
sorry to cut you off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but you're the mayor of Brocton. You should be concerned of your residents. And for you to say that you don't care about that rating, that just flabbergasts me.
Well, I'll try to explain the best I can the reason why I felt that way. And number one is, I can't find anything on the internet that tells me what the ISO rating is for Brocton.
It's a
Or
10.
Red.
It's
I'm
a
sorry?
10. It's a 10.
I've been told that, but I can't find public information on that. And if it's not a government agency and it's not public information, you know, Patty being a insurance salesman, she can tell me anything she wants to. But we all need, you gotta understand. I mean, you can laugh at me all you want to, I don't care.
Because the
But-
thing is, and I don't mean to cut you off, the thing is, we had to switch insurance, Dennis, because they would not cover us anymore because of our ISO rating.
I get that. But I also found that on what we have done with our water department and what we're trying to do with our water department brings, into focus the water source of the ISO rating, which is 40% of the rating. 40%, that's huge. And it says in there that the infrastructure is what they want to see done. That's that's part of the reason why we're doing this, is to try to make it better for everybody in town.
I totally appreciate that. But by switching out those hydrants to these, are they flush hydrants is what they are? Then, correct me if I'm wrong, the fire department cannot hook up to those to fight a fire.
No, that's not correct.
It's not?
No,
Okay.
and I can prove it. I mean, according to what Craig had told us at the last meeting was you can't even hook a hose to it. Damon and I hooked the hose to it. It fits on there, screws on tight, it works just fine. There's no reason why you couldn't hook to it. There's no law against hooking to it. And these flush hydrants that we have in town are not even the flush hydrants we were going to put in. These are 2-inch flush hydrants. We were talking about putting 4-inch flush hydrants in. So, and my problem with the ISO is the fact that it stands for the Insurance Service Organization, I believe. It is created by insurance companies. It's created for rates. And yes, they're a for-profit organization that they have to work off of because that insurance company chooses to do so. If I personally don't care about the ISO, it doesn't mean that I don't care about it as a board, because that's why partly why we're trying to do this water main grant, is to update this. We've put $380,000 into building a new plant that now carries, instead of just enough filtration and just enough water being able to be pumped for one day, we can do 4 times that now. We can actually take one filter down and fix the other filter with what we have out there. We have 2 pumps that pump into here. We can supply water to the tower faster than we ever was. All of this is done to benefit the entire people of this town. If we get the second part of this grant, this is $1 million grant for a small town like Brocton. That's buckets right there. You'll never see many grants to small towns like this. It goes from a 4-inch line of what we know in the ground now to 6-inch PVC all new. And we were going back with all 4-inch hydrants. What we wanted to do was to save the cost, because of the expense of this, to go with the flush hydrants. We are trying to negotiate this situation. That's the only thing I can tell you, is that we are trying to figure this out. I sent John an agreement, try way early so we can negotiate back and forth before this night. Because if we'd have come in here blindly with nothing to start on, it would never get settled tonight. They're supposed to break ground this week. And if we put that off, it's going to cost us big time. Yeah, they've already put it off for this week, because they were supposed to start Monday of this week, and now they're going to plan on starting Monday of next week. So we have to figure this out.
I agree.
So if I offended you by saying I don't care, I care, because my insurance went up too. I do care in my pocket. But for an agency like ISO to come in here and tell our fire department that they are a 10, why? Where is that public information at? Why did they become a 10 from an 8? Was it because of the water? No, it was not because of the water. It was because of training and paperwork. So we're trying our best to try to help this whole situation. Is that all you got, Pam?
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I guess when you say you went at this blindly, I guess my question is how many board members that are up there were actually aware that we were not putting in fire hydrants and we were putting in flush hydrants? And the reason why I ask that is because when we talked to certain board members up there, they had no idea what was going on until Wednesday of that meeting.
No,
So
that's wrong. I don't know what board member actually told you that.
I did.
Okay, in March, we had a meeting right here in March where we changed the scope.
I have the March minutes. Please, show me in there.
Just because
where-
it's not in that minutes doesn't mean it was just not.
It's not written, it's not said.
No, that's not necessarily true. It's
That's my law
only in
is.
it may it's supposed to be. But it doesn't matter at this point, John.
How many board members remember voting on it? I'd like to show of hands, please.
I'm sorry, say that again, John.
How many board members remember voting on this change order?
It wasn't a change order.
Well, it kind of was, it was supposed to replace everything.
What is it?
Plans.
What is it? I mean,
It was just an original scope before the plans actually got approved to go in, to be done.
well, I'll reword it. How many remember voting on?
How many of you remember talking about this in March? You remember?
I wasn't here in March.
You yourself told me that you was here when that was discussed. So if it wasn't March, when was it?
Well, if you want to mention March, March of last year. Don't forget, we've been talking about this for well over a year,
We've been talking about this for 3 years,
so.
and no one cared until we got ready to dig ground.
No.
Because-
Yes, that is
Hang on.
true.
Hang on. In November, I think, you had quite a few of the fire department people come in, and we asked you then, are we gonna put in fire hydrants or flush hydrants? And you said you'll put back hydrants. Now, if you're gonna go off the technicality, anybody in this room, if you heard somebody say, we're gonna put hydrants back, who here would say, oh, the flush hydrants are going in? You would have specifically said flush hydrants then. You're acting like we needed to come and literally hold your hand through it. We came respectfully, asked what was going on, and then you changed it without letting anybody know, and your board members don't know.
It's on the agenda. It's not like nobody knew.
Well, it kind of seems that way. I mean, everybody's looking around like, you don't know what you're talking about.
And wasn't the grant filled out for fire hydrants?
The grant was filled out for
Everybody
hydrants.
wants to see it.
flush
It's in the plan.
It said fire, or flush hydrants in it?
Yes, it does.
So I guess my biggest question is, in November when we came and asked, did you lie on purpose? Or
I didn't
what?
lie at all,
I'm-
and I don't
Hey,
appreciate
hey,
being accused of being
Hey,
a liar.
I'm asking a question.
You're not asking.
I'm not talking calmly. What I'm saying is, if you changed it, you did it after that night, after we were all under the same mindset that hydrants were gonna go back in. You never said that the flush hydrants were going in that
Well,
night.
at the time that I did not know we was considering flush hydrants, because that scope was not changed until later. It never was changed.
It's in the plans. A scope change is a change that you make after the plans are done. That's what a scope change is.
Okay, so it never was changed. So,
Okay, I have something to say.
Wow.
You guys keep saying it's in the plan, it's in the plans. Okay, I myself never saw these plans.
I never either.
So how am I supposed to know what's happening?
What?
How am I supposed to know what's in? Last I remember us talking, everything was going to go back the way it was. Fire hydrants for fire hydrants, flush hydrants for flush hydrants. I've looked back through my March minutes, there is no mention of changing it, and God forgive me, the first time that I can find any mention of it is in the bid, and I myself, and I think I can talk for every member here, we did not go item by item down the list of the bids to find out what was being put in. We thought it was all set that fire hydrants were going back in. We were looking at bottom numbers.
On the bids. It's in the bids.
Yeah, I know it's in the bids. I've got the bids right here, Cheryl.
Honestly, there was no intent to lie to no one about it.
I'm sorry, Chad?
I would like to know who concocted this idea. Who came up with this whole idea of what we're doing? Because doesn't seem like anybody up there has a clue of what is going on. Because if it comes back to you, Dennis, you say, I don't know. Who drew this up? Who came up with this idea?
We
Because you know, it affects every one of our houses in this town. It affects everyone.
We went after a grant to try to benefit everyone in this town.
How did you benefit?
Excuse me?
How did you benefit? Explain that to me. How did you benefit? I understand you went to a 6-inch PVC, you went to a 4-inch riser, and then you go to a flush hydrant, which is a 2.5-inch hose.
No.
A 2.5-inch
No, the
hose.
scope of that flush hydrant says 4-inch post. Period. It's a
You
4-inch.
put a 2.5-inch hose to it. Am I right or am I wrong?
Right.
Okay, so how
What
do
do
you
you got
supposed to
on
know
the, what do
anything
you
off
got
that?
on the flush, on the fire hydrants right now with a 2.5-inch hose?
Aye.
We also got a
Yeah.
fire on there.
When have you ever hooked the fire truck to one of those fire
Tattered fire, they
Fixed
live too.
fire?
Regardless, you buy
You say
insurance,
never?
you don't have to use it.
Always. Always?
The tavern, we had two of them, two different hydrants, one in front of Carol Moss's, the other one at the corner of Graham, the third.
The tavern fire?
Yep,
How many years ago was that?
doesn't matter, you asked how many times we've done it. Big fire, big water.
Okay, you guys were out to crucify me, that's fine. I don't
No.
care.
Dennis, seriously, everyone's sitting here, tax-paying people, we have a right to say something. And every time somebody says something, I'm not, you're out to crucify me. That's crap. Quit. Act like adults.
Calm down, please.
It's you.
Fred.
Whether we hook to the 5-inch side of the hydrant or not, every person that's building pays for insurance. Whether we're using insurance or not, we pay for it.
So why would we want a chance getting rid of that opportunity to have that?
Let me ask you this, are we trying to work this situation out?
We are. I'm just adding
we
in.
trying? I mean, are we trying to work this out? If we're not, what are we doing here? Are we trying to still work this out, John?
I hope so. I hope so.
You know, let's do it. Let's move on.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't usually talk in public, but didn't you say last week that you guys was gonna work on options? Give us different options that we would lay out on the table, and then everybody would have a chance to say, okay, this is, option A is the one we want. Or, because we talked about raising the price of the water bill, and we talked about getting a loan. There were different things, and you guys said you would come up with options, so when we had this meeting today, that we have something to say, okay, we can raise the bill $5 all through town and get all new fire hydrants. Because you said it was going to be like, what, 40,000 for each end?
40,000 for each end, 30,000 is 96,000 for the total project.
Okay, so we talked about raising water bills or getting a loan or, you know, different things, but I don't hear, unless some of this I'm misunderstanding, but I don't hear any options.
Well, when it come down to looking for what we could do, the only option, the two options that we had was either try to come up with a negotiated way of doing this, which is what this represents, or go with the original scope, or just not go with any of it and be sued. So that's your options. Which one do you want to try to do? You want to try to negotiate this tonight, or do you want to?
Now, what's the paper that you're,
This is, this actually reads that the fire hydrant use agreement between Brocton Fire Protection District and the Village of Brocton. The trustees have it, the firemen have all seen it. This is what we're trying to work out.
what they pay?
It's part of what they pay, yes.
Well, Dennis, the trustees have agreed, part of that agreement. And you've seen that proposal also.
Right. So,
Has the rest of the board seen that?
no. And as I told, and now you can laugh all you want to, but as I said, John, I told him that none of the board members had seen this agreement. It was not voted on, it had not been bid on, but they had all discussed it. Every one of them, including Kristen, had been talked to. Pam.
Is there not the option of keeping the same size fire hydrants that we have now? Is that not even an option?
That's what this agreement's gonna allow them to do. Put the same size fire hydrants back in that you have right now.
Okay, that's what I was
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get to.
So how many fire hydrants do you guys have?
We have 49 total. This would replace 48 of them because we have one running.
Actual fire hydrants?
Actual fire.
Because we've got how many that we marked out for
On
that?
our hydrant map, on page 1, if I understand correctly, everything south of the river track, right?
Correct.
According to our hydrant map, there's 16 that'll be on page 1, and 8, another less than 16 on page 2.
13 on
13
the
that'll
north
be on
side.
page 2.
And those are actual fire hydrants.
The engineers have counted 49 total in the town.
I'd imagine that would probably be flush hydrants included.
It could be.
Because
But
that's,
would you rather have a fire hydrant put in place of a flush hydrant?
I mean,
I'm
we're
being
just,
honest, man. I'm asking a
Well,
question, I'm not being smart.
well, yeah, I mean, that would make sense.
No.
Well,
Actual
our biggest thing is that we're talking about the hydrants that are in place now. And that would be 16. So,
Phase one.
and phase 1.
Correct.
So the thing is that's not gonna, I don't see where that's gonna add up to $40,000.
I'm still trying to figure out what the argument is here. Do you guys want to negotiate or what?
Why do you keep saying argument?
Where are we?
Conversation.
May I?
Yes, please.
Okay, after the last Wednesday night's meeting, Dennis and Cheryl both contacted me to try to work out an agreement that we could present to our fire board, which was Monday night, and then here tonight. Their first draft was a little rough. We needed to put stuff in it, some more verbiage. We came up to one. I made the call that we would furnish somebody a pager. That's not a good way of doing it. I asked for it to be changed to a phone call because of the HIPAA law. Everything goes out across that page, whether it's a medical, wreck, fire, everything. We were worried about that. That's the reason I asked for the phone call, or we asked. One of the others was that we asked that instead of a year contract, we do a 5 to 10 year contract, because we want to be in it for the long haul.
You want to be in for the long haul? Let's do a 40-year contract. You willing for 40, because that's the scope of the loan.
I'm probably still going to be here.
Good. I probably won't.
Rodney, you on board with that? 40 years? Be here? You'll be here? But that's the reason, that's what I'm saying. Because in a year's time, when we would come up for the first anniversary, probably this won't be done.
It'd be easier just to have a set amount of year contract between the village and the fire district.
I'm good with that. I have no trouble.
The third thing was, we had discussed, that as much as possible, the guys would load up at the water plant. There's no key up there.
And we're not going to give one either, and I'll tell you why. We will fix the valve so that it can be turned from the outside hole. But there was a time, and I can't tell you the date, but there was a time that someone turned water off to the tank up there. And it was a night that there was a fire and that there was people up there at that. I'm not saying the guys did it. I'm saying it got turned off. Our pumps ran for a good 24 hours against that head pressure, pumping no water. Now, that alone would have been an easy fix. I mean, it would have been a costly fix if it had burned our pumps up. But when the tower come down and called for more water, it pumped in the second pump, which guess what? Run two. Now, we don't know how long they both ran until a resident called and said, hey, my pressure's low, what's going on? And we checked it out. And that's when we found out that someone had turned that off. It's a quarter-turn valve. I can't guide you guys in there.
That's fine, as long as we can access it like that.
Question, if you're gonna turn the valve so we can access it from the outside, will that have, during the winter months, will that be heated so it doesn't have a chance to freeze?
It's inside anyway, so
Okay.
it will be heated, yes. And I talked with Harvey Dye about raising that up, and we've come up with a plan that we think, building a thing up that'll
Now,
raise through the
the
door.
pump up there that we use, is that ours or is that the village's?
That's your pump.
Okay, now, we're wanting to try to get a bigger pump so we can fill trucks faster. Can the plumbing to that pump be enlarged at all to help the volume coming into the bigger pump?
It would have to be re-engineered and okay through the EPA.
Right.
But yes, I'm sure.
But I mean, that's unfiltered water, correct? Or
Right.
untreated water?
Right.
Okay.
And and in all honesty, I can fill your tanker trucks up there out of that 10,000 gallon storage tank out back faster than you can keep filling them from these fire hydrants. Maybe not at the time right now.
Because it takes 7 minutes to fill it over
Okay,
here, 17 up there.
What I'm trying to say by that is you can literally pull one out and back another and then we won't run out of water. Over here, once you get down to 70%, you're done, period. And that is because I'm not gonna allow coli to get to the drinking water in this town. The EPA causes us to stop that. It's not our deal, it's EPA. So, you know, John, I really appreciated the way you negotiated everything with us. You've come up with some great points, you've added them, we've never balked on anything that I know of.
Well, I did, I knew this tonight, we needed to try to get, these people need to be let in on, or maybe just have somebody that wants to read the agreement as it stands. So you guys would be okay with the changes that we asked for?
Everything except the key to the water plant, yes.
Understandable. That would be off the
As long
table.
as we have access.
As long as we got access, we don't need it.
Not a
So
problem.
that gets everything, I think.
Pressure gauge. Well, they said they'd make a phone call, so if
To
you
whoever-
don't make a
to
phone
whoever-
call,
You
then
tell us who you want it to go to.
Yeah.
Well, think about it.
I'll have to let you know.
Right. We,
Yeah,
because that's how we discussed it at first.
right.
Was a phone call, and I said, well, didn't figure the guys would want to be trying to make a phone call in the heat of a fire, but then it was brought up, and it was a very good point, that actually we might be in violation of the HIPAA if we provided a pager that every page went out over.
Well, see, it was my thinking, anyway, that, you would provide a pager to our water superintendent, who is a fireman in Nashville. I would think he would be covered under HIPAA also.
Well, you know how that goes.
Well, I do, yeah.
So that was our thought
It's
process.
a minimal point for me, I don't care.
Okay.
But you guys do realize that if you take us down below that 70% and we get fined or anything, throw us in the boil order, according to this agreement, you pay.
Now, how will we know where the cutoff is?
Well, that's where we'll let, whoever we designate for you to call,
Okay.
we'll have to have someone that they can call back.
If I could, Mayor, I appreciate it. My name's Kirk Allen. I'm Fire Chief down in Kansas. I'm also Edgar County Watchdogs. I'm here wearing multiple hats. I'm also a tactical fireground instructor, and I teach in Ashland. And I can tell you 15 years ago, I went through something very similar in Kansas, and I want to share that with you to provide hopefully some solutions, because there are some simple solutions to this. The whole concept of ISO is greatly misunderstood, and we deal with ISO all the time, but it is one of the most important elements to keep everybody's insurance rates lower. It is a public record, you just have to know where to go get it. Typically, the fire department and or the village are sent the master copies. In regards to, I went down through Kansas years ago. I went through the USDA to get a grant, for the purpose of a water tower. We were going to pay for it. Our portion of it, the fire department was going to cover it. And we presented it to the village, and we were told no. A brand new water tower. And we were told no because, hey, the water tower we have, there's people who drive 500 miles to take a picture of it. Even though we could stay there and not even be connected, they turned down a free water tower. And it was all about this side against that side. And there was a rift between the two agencies. In regards to that rift, we were told, well, if you don't like it, then we'll just stop you from using the hydrants. I noticed that was a provision in this, that certain things don't happen. First and foremost, everybody in here is paying taxes. Okay? We're all taxpayers. You all are taxpayers in this community. If you install something in your system within your municipal laws, that's your obligation and you pay for it. And yes, you can have intergovernmental agreements. But there's a provision in the law that talks about hydrants. And when you put them in, the expense of locating, constructing hydrants for the purpose of fire protection, blah, 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 may be assessed upon and collected from the property specifically benefited thereby. That's a specific provision that tells you how you can collect money for that purpose. Okay? When there's no other language that says you can get it from here, you can charge the fire department, that becomes a whole other equation that can have legal ramifications. There was a mention of contracts, how long you're going to have this contract. Well, there's also case law precedents on what's called binding the hands of future boards. When you enter a contract, you're, as elected officials, and I don't know if the fire trustees are elected or appointed, but you have a term of office. You can't bind the hands of a term beyond yours. Does that make sense? So that's something to think about from the contract, because other people get elected. Why do they get elected? Hey, something happened, they don't like what you did, or they do like, and they didn't like one side or the other, but when people get newly elected, that's when change happens. That's called the voters being represented. So that's something to think about in your contract. In the Fire Protection District, the Board of Trustees may contract for installation, rental, and use of fire hydrants. There's a provision for them to do that. I'll be happy to leave this with you. And for the municipal side, you can regulate the construction, repair, and use of the hydrants and services. And then, like you mentioned before, Dennis, the 40% on your ISO comes from availability of water supply, prevalence of fire hydrants, and how much water is available to put out fires. We were a 9 in Kansas forever, and I was told there's no way you'll ever change it, ever. And I mean, it was some knockdown, drag-out fights, and the water tower was the first step I was pushing for. Start big, go big or stay home. We are now a 6. But when I went from a 9 to a 7, the average homeowner, according to the insurance agents, was saving $165 a year. That was from a 9 to a 7. A 10, you don't have a fire department.
No
That is
responding fire
that is what a 10 means. You have no fire department. Even though you do, whatever didn't get done in your ISO inspection, and I do these yearly with people to get through this, from a 10 just to a 9 is a tremendous savings. And you could probably go down to an 8 or a 7 with a little bit of work and a little bit of assistance. The water side of it's a big one. Why did the Edgar County Watchdog start? Do you have any idea, Dennis? Do you ever know the history of that? Anybody? It started because of 911, our Edgar County Communications. Right out of, from the ISO standpoint, 10% comes from the quality of the area's emergency communication system. So 50 is from the fire department, 40 is from the water system, 10% is from 911. And the goal is to get that number as low as possible. You do that by planning the big numbers, the bigger hydrants, the bigger connections. You may never need them, but I can tell you I spent a career in Alaska and I didn't walk in the woods with a 22 pistol. Okay? You go big or stay home. Okay? And you hope you never need it. You plan for the worst and you hope for the best. In regards to this contract, it was sent to me actually by several folks, and I appreciate it. Under the fire hydrant use, it says Brocton Fire Protection District may utilize the fire hydrants within the village. Okay? Can Kansas Fire Department use them?
I don't know why they couldn't.
Well, I don't have a contract with you. You're entering into, and the reason I ask is because we have mutual aid.
Your mutual aid would cover your contract.
Okay, so I can connect to your hydrant, I don't have to worry about paying you for water.
Absolutely.
Okay?
We've done that forever. Have we not?
Well, and when I'm done with this, I think you'll know where I'm going on this.
Okay.
At any time of use, never, under any circumstances, what this says, under any circumstance, shall the use of water drop the levels of pressure to the point, blah, blah, blah. You don't want to lose your pressure because you don't want to boil over. Okay, we've been through this. You have to call someone. They're not answering. Now what do I do?
You have to go find it.
You wait for the fire to burn out.
And I'm asking because when you say under no circumstance, we as firefighters are going to make the connection and we're going to take water. And we're going to fight fire. And guess what? I'm either going to run out of fire, run out of water, or it's going to burn to the ground. I don't want to be the one that has to say it burned to the ground because I can't use any more water. And I understand the boil order concerns, but there are mechanisms to put in safety devices and transfer valves to prevent that from happening, to go to a non-treated system that wouldn't have that impact, or a secondary pump. But the biggest point is, don't do what's happened to us in other communities all over the country, is devote it to one phone call to a person. And if that person's not available, now what? Because this is under no circumstance. I can promise you there will be circumstances where you're not going to get a hold of that guy for whatever reason. You got to have a backup to the backup.
Well, that's something to give serious consideration.
Okay? Damage to hydrants and or water mains. This is probably the biggest misnomer in the fire service. And if any of you go to Indianapolis next year, join my hydraulic class. You'll get a lot out of it, I promise. In the event that a fire hose is connected from the fire trucks directly to the fire hydrants, the water main collapses, bursts, or breaks, parentheses, due to the suction, the fire department shall be liable for replacement of the damages because the damages will have drastic safety effect on all residents drinking water. This is a fire hose, okay? It connects to your hydrant. Standard connection on that, right? Your hydrant is cast.
Yeah.
And your pipe in the ground is PVC, okay? If you are at a point where you are drafting water, which is technically what they call sucking water, it's not really sucking, it's atmospheric air pushing it in, but that's a whole other class. This hose, if you get to the point where you're drafting that much, you know what it does? And you're going to suck in a liner into that pump, and you're going to be done. You're never going to damage that fire line.
So there's no concern in what's in the contract, then, is there?
None in regards to a suction collapse.
What does it hurt to have it in there?
Why I need it.
Now,
Well,
let me
here,
ask you,
and it's a good question, and I want to address it. What's it hurt to have it in it? Okay, Chief, I shared this with you the other day, wherever you went. Okay, we were up in Galesburg area, and we were doing a presentation, and we were drawing down to about 20 pounds on the hydrant. And it wasn't a block and a half down, water was gushing out of the ground. You destroyed the hydrant, look what you did. They dug it up, and it was one of the last wooden hydrants in that entire system. Fast forward to where you're at today. Something happens on the fire ground, and all of a sudden you got something leaking over there. Oh, it's the fire department's fault. The contract says you're liable. Well, how do you prove that they caused that? Then you have to bring in experts. That's what I do. I can bring in flow meters, pressure gauges, all the test equipment you can imagine. I can tell you what you're flowing to right down to the gallon per second to identify those kind of problems. And 99% of the time, it has nothing to do with what that fire department did making a connection. Not with today's technology. Water hammer used to be a big one. Well, more often than not on small lines when we're fighting fires, you're not flowing enough water in those hand lines to cause water hammer that's going to go back into that main system. You can with your intakes, but that type of a clause in there just creates all kinds of headaches for everybody because there's no way to prove it. You will never suck a main when you connect a hose to it.
what if they drive off with the hose connected to the fire hydrant?
That's obvious damage that's evident.
Okay?
Okay.
There's no clause in there, what covers that?
Their insurance would cover that.
Where does it say that in the contract?
Well, if you ask your insurance carrier, when we do something stupid like that, in fact, we're still on record, aren't we?
Yes.
There are some fire departments that will intentionally flow out of a deck gun 1,000 gallons of water. That's a boatload of water. And they slam the valve, close it, creates a water hammer. What's it do? It goes right back through the entire system, and it will pop mains, it will pop valves. Well, we've needed a new water main, that's how you get one. I've seen people do that.
And what happens if that's what happens and creates a problem for a brand new man?
The fire insurance covers those type of things, and the agents will tell. I know our agents have confirmed if it's fire related or caused, they cover that in the insurance. the biggest thing is being able to prove what the action is. What you described, the fire department's going to be, you're going to be able to prove the fire department caused that.
What'd you say your job title was?
My job title?
Yeah.
I'm a tactical fire ground instructor. I'm retired military. I've been teaching fire instructor or fire hydraulics on fire ground for about 26 years now. Routine maintenance, you got on here in accordance with EPA. Hydrant flushing in accordance with the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency. Do you know what that flush requirement is?
3 times a year.
Okay. Do they tell you to document it?
Yes.
Okay. ISO, if you document it at least twice a year, you get full credit. If you don't document it, it's a big killer. Annual rental for fire hydrant use and fee. Here you talk about renting the hydrants or paying a fee for $2,000. This said fee, in addition to the commercial water meter, will be installed at the district's building for monthly water usage. This fee will help pay for the extra loan incurred for the said described fire hydrants. I default back to what the law says. You may assess, as far as fees, upon and collected from property specifically benefited thereby. So there's a balancing act from a legal standpoint. You all may want to agree to it, but somebody may come in the next election and say, well, wait a minute, you can only charge fees for the hydrants to those who benefit, which would be your property owners in town. And that gets into a legal quagmire. You want to charge the fire department, you're charging taxpayers. Whether it's you paying it by having an increased rate or the fire department paying it, they got to come up with the money somewhere. Get ready for your next tax levy. Somebody's going to raise the taxes. Having it in there, to me, creates a bigger problem down the road because depending on next election, somebody may say, hey, we don't want to do this anymore. In this provision, it says if you don't pay it, you can't use your hydrants. Let that sink in for a minute because that's what they told me in Kansas. If you don't pay it, you can't. If you're not going to do what we want, then you can't use our hydrants. That's what we were told.
Are you allowed to use hydrants in Kansas?
Absolutely.
I was told that Kansas, you had one main connection that you could fill tanker trucks with, and that was it.
Who told you that?
I don't remember.
I live and die by a principle called says who with what proof. And it absolutely works on everything you do in life.
So just tell me that's not true.
It's not true.
Okay.
Not true at all. We connect to hydrants all the time.
Okay.
All the time. In regards to the hydrants you're wanting to put in, you may not need your primary steamer connection on every hydrant. You can strategically do it, whether it's every block, every other block. There's places that are more critical and less critical. Some that don't have a fire flow necessary, a smaller structure. I don't need 1,000 gallons a minute. I can get by with 350 or 4. Depends on the fire behavior of the structures that are in that part of town. It's a balancing act to know where to put those strategically. Unfortunately, your engineer probably hasn't shared that with you. But a building of a certain size is going to take a certain amount of water if it was fully involved. And there's math to that. Hey, I'd want one out here, but if I go to an area that's got 2 or 3 small ranch homes, I don't need that kind of fire flow. Why put the money in that area? So those are all things to consider that, unfortunately, engineers typically don't do. They want to apply a one-size-fits-all. As far as the fees, and it's entirely up to what you guys want to do, but the bottom line, I beg everybody to remember, it's the taxpayers that are paying it. The termination, I've hit on that briefly. This agreement may terminate by either party with a notice no less than 60 days before August 1st. Is that of every year, of this year?
Well, we've just talked about that, about extending that out for years. Instead of using the termination date, they want a definite 5 or 10 years or whatever.
Okay, and it says if however it's terminated, the fire district will not be allowed to use the fire hydrants within the village of Brocton.
Well, no one ever said, Kurt, that we might not need to rewrite some of the wordage of it. None of us are professionals here. We're trying to get by with this.
And that's why I wanted to share this, to give you the experiences that I went through, to hopefully shed some light on bigger solutions to the problem. Because one of the biggest challenges we had back then was division. Do we have any division in this country right now?
No.
As a community, It took us time, but as a community, we came together all for the same cause. And when we try to assess fees or penalties or restrictions, we have to have a balancing act as to why. But the last thing you ever want to do is say, if somebody terminates this contract, you can't use the fire hydrant. Because here's what's going to happen. Any lawyers in here? Paralegals? The first time you have a fire, say it's your family, and you lose a family member. The fire department couldn't connect. They ran out of water, whatever you had from whatever creek, lake, or pond you got from, but you're not allowed to connect. Who do you think's getting sued?
Everybody.
Everybody. And you know who the brunt of it will be? The one that put it in the contract that says you can't use our water if you terminate this. I beg of you, don't put that in there because you will have a legal nightmare sooner or later. I pray it never happens, but it takes one fire with one property loss and a guy that says, you know what? There's my hook. You're going to pay for it. That's all I have. Thank you.
That can be taken out. If that's what you guys want to do, we can take that out. Now, let's get back to what you want to do.
I got a question.
Richard.
There was a lot of little things you could argue about all day long. Thing was, we're trying to redo the water. Then the concern came up about the fire hydrants. I really haven't heard anybody say anything about not trying to get it. We do need to figure out how to get the money to get it. My question is, and I'm not picking either side because this question could go the wrong way if I was, because I have no idea what the answer is. What is the town or the water department obligated to do?
Obligated to do?
I mean,
Morally or legally, because there's a difference.
legally.
Legally, we're not obligated to provide with any water from what I understand. Because our water system is a drinking water system. It's not a firefighting system.
I mean, you know, we have fire hydrants. I mean, I'm not
Right.
trying to argue either side. I'm just wondering what we really have to do. Because money.
Well, I'm trying to get away from the point of what we have to do and what we can do to make it better for everybody, I've never said that we couldn't put these other fire hydrants in, that was the thing. We just gotta figure out, as you said, where the money comes from.
I mean, there's little things in this draft that I probably don't agree with, just like he was saying. Somebody's saying, maybe we don't need to be in there. But,
Could very well be.
like I said, we've never really argued the point about getting it. We just gotta figure out how to do it.
Right.
That, I didn't know what we were required to do.
Yeah,
I don't know, we talked, about putting a real hydrant, a big hydrant, every other spot or something. I mean, is that okay?
Well, they already said
What's
they
the
don't have
rules?
enough hose to go that far.
I mean, what do we have to do to make it right?
Go ahead, Craig.
How old are the water meters that we're gonna be replacing? Like, on the service line meters, could we replace all those, correct?
We're not replacing all of them.
Not replacing all of them, okay.
No, because we replaced them 5 years ago.
That's what I was wondering, I mean, is that something where we could save money?
We've already budgeted that in. That was like the difference when we were trying to get this all done to save money was to use the old water meters along with going with the flush hydrant instead of the fire hydrant. Obviously, we made a mistake on that, but, we're trying to fix it.
Well, and Dennis, that's why, I brought up the fact that the hydrants, they're only being 16 on the south side.
Right.
That's not gonna, I know it's big again for however many it was, but that's not saying that you gotta spend the money to replace every hydrant anyway with a fire hydrant. It would just be say the 16 hydrants we already have. And that's gonna cut down on that cost of the $40,000.
Well, here's the thing. We're trying to not put any old equipment back into it.
Well, no, I'm not saying just out of the replacement of them. that there would only be 16 hydrants that need replaced.
I can't argue that point, because
That's-
that's count. So
but,
I don't know.
But no, that's, I mean, that was a point of me bringing up that.
Right.
That's how many actual fire hydrants there are on the south end of town.
Because I think you had 22 flush hydrants scheduled to go in phase one.
In phase one, yes.
I know there's some dead end line you're probably going to put the flush hydrants on, correct?
We're what?
Put the flush hydrant at the dead end run, like down at my house in James.
The scope of the grant was to put flush hydrants everywhere. So it's my.
But I mean, you're going to go ahead and put flush
I don't
hydrants.
think we should, not if we're going to do this. I mean, why, what would be the difference, you know, if, well, let's just say your neighbor across the ditch there, her house catches on fire, where's your closest fire hydrant?
Cams.
Yeah, no, the closest one would be in your driveway if we put a regular fire hydrant in it. So why not, now's the time to do this.
Okay, I agree.
If we're gonna do this, let's do it right. You know, I've never said let's not do it right.
Well, I just didn't know if he's going to go ahead, because I know some of the existing, when you put flush hydrants at dead end runs.
We did that several years ago to
Right.
try to, you know, make the water
Right.
quality better. And that was a $16,000 project then, so, yeah. For,
Do you know how many deadheads you've got right now? Or how many
Seven.
in the project?
well, I don't know how many was left in the project, but there's 7 right now.
Are they trying to eliminate them?
That was what was supposed to have been done.
Okay, because a loop system solves so many problems.
As it
And
did.
if they didn't suggest that, man, find a new engineer.
It was talked about, yes.
Yeah, and there are situations you'll have a dead end, but the dead end, that's the worst thing you could have for a fire system, is a dead end.
Some of the situations, there's no way around it.
Right.
We've actually, believe it or not, our engineers have tried to give us the best system that we can do. And I think they've done a bang-up job getting this grant that we've got so far. And I really think that, you know, people are not very appreciative to what we have done here, what we're trying to do here. You know, this is buckets on water quality for years to come. Our system's 60 years old. You know, and you know, when we took the old water plant down, when we pulled the existing filler out, the one filler that was out, they lifted it up with a bobcat, the bottom fell out of it. So we have no reason to believe that these pipes at the ground are in much better shape. And we're losing, well, we lost 4.3 million gallons of water last year, unexplained. We found some of the leaks, and we still can't find all of them. So we still have leaks.
Well, in regards to, some may not appreciate it, I'll give you my perspective. I hope everybody does appreciate, because I live in Kansas where I still got 2-inch water mains. I lay 4-inch and 5-inch hose above ground for 1,000 feet, because I put my pipe above ground, because I ain't gonna get it underground. And they refuse to fix it. I don't even have a generator to back up our system if it goes down in a power outage.
We do too.
You have a generator?
Yes, we do.
We don't, unless, well, they bought one, but they haven't put it in service last I was told. We haven't had a generator for 15, 20 years. So I appreciate you trying to fix it. It's a huge problem. And a lot of folks may not understand what goes into it, but sharing that information as much as you can publicly and letting people vent, my hat's off to you for letting
I don't
people.
mind venting, I really don't.
My
I
hat's
don't
off
mind
to you
venting
for that.
till the level of talking comes up to here. You know, I don't yell at anybody, I don't want people like to be yelled at me. You know, now let me ask you this, Kurt, you've written grants in the past,
Yes, sir.
and $1 million grants,
Yes, sir.
and are they easy?
Well, that's a loaded.
Are they,
And
let me
our-
ask you this, are they a lot of work
For a grant writer, not really.
for the writer, but how about for the person doing the?
The one that's got to gather the information, that's not in that environment, yeah. A fire grant, we write those all the time, all over the country. But we know what we're doing. It's a very narrow scope. It does take time, but usually, whoever your engineer is, usually has a grant writer that takes care of that. And they should streamline that for you. It shouldn't be that.
The only thing I'm trying to stress here is that we have put a lot of work into this. We put a lot of thought into this.
Oh, I know.
And we've had a lot of conversation in the board, even though some don't remember it. I'm sure there's a lot of things that's discussed into this board that a lot of them don't remember. But, Mark,
I have actually, this question is for Kevin Key, President of the Trustees for the Fire Department. After all the red flags that you've heard Kurt talk about tonight, are you guys willing to sit here still and go right along with what they want, or what are you guys thinking?
Well, I mean, we're probably gonna have to pass some other stuff out, but
There's a lot of red flags he brought up.
I know that. But for the people of the community, you know, I'm looking out, I'm trying to take their perspective of it also.
Have you guys got some deadline or on?
Yes.
they were supposed to have broke ground 3 days ago, and it was put off because of this issue. So if our contractor goes somewhere else and starts another job, we don't win it.
If you need to recess for another day, you can just recess, announce the new day and time and location. As long as you use the same agenda, you don't need to post another 48 hours. So you can recess tonight if you don't get done, meet again tomorrow with the same agenda, or meet again the day after tomorrow, or 2 days after tomorrow, or any time before your deadline for starting construction next week, without posting an agenda. As long as you tell people at this meeting, we're going to meet, say, tomorrow at 6 p.m. in this room, using the same agenda, so that you don't have to repost it.
Right. You guys think we're so far off, we need to reset a meeting?
Yes, because you don't have an agreement for anybody to sign.
Okay.
Nobody can approve an agreement that's in there, it has to be in writing.
Can I ask where this all originated from? Where did the ideas come that we were going to start this whole process? Did it come because Metcalf did it, or did it come because we investigated it? That's my first question.
This has got nothing to do with Metcalf doing that.
Well, say Hume, say Paris. Where did we come up with the idea?
When the grant comes off, you know, we get a sheet of grants that are available. When the grant comes around, it was an idea, you know, since we updated our water plant a few years ago. This is a main, you know, issue here, to try to update the infrastructure here in the town. Do you think it's a bad deal?
I'm concerned about fires and things like that, because I've been on that side.
On the water side, do you think drinking water quality and stuff like that, do you think that us putting new pipes in the ground is a bad deal?
No, not at all, nor did I ever insinuate that.
No, but I guess I'm trying to figure out where you're coming from, what's your reason?
Well, I don't know why you
you
brought it up. What made us venture out to this way instead of just leaving our hydrants and replacing our hydrants the way they were? What made us go to something different?
I guess I'm missing what you're trying to say.
Are you asking why we went from just doing water mains to doing water mains and hydrants? Is that it? Well, why did you think it was okay to do the flush hydrants versus keeping the fire hydrants the way they are?
Oh, well, I can tell you that the reason we thought that was okay was because of the advice of our engineer. You know, he says that, you know, there was virtually no difference, which is probably the reason why I misspoke when I said that we were replacing them with hydrants. They are a 4-inch hydrant, not a 2-inch hydrant like we have now for the flush hydrants. They are 4-inch hydrants off of a 6-inch main. Everything would be new. But they just have one connection, a 2.5-inch connection. So, you know.
And then where is it with budget? I know this is going to cost more to keep the fire hydrants, but where did we get into such a deficit? Because years ago, our deficit wasn't as what it is now. From what I'm hearing is we're using PayPal to buy things with no receipts. We're buying things for the water department. We're paying Cheryl for Metcalf to do the stuff. We used to have Gary that done that. Where did we mess up with that?
Can I answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because the auditors asked me if I was willing to work with Dennis, because Dennis said he was looking for maybe a treasurer, because they wasn't able to get their records. Some of the records was because Gary, who did the water, did not supply any records. There's none showing for 20 years who paid what, it just got deposited, and there was nothing for audit, which made the audit extremely expensive for the village of Brocton.
And absolutely no disrespect for you, absolutely not, because I know what you're doing to MedCap is fine and great, and matter of fact, my son says you're one hell of a worker. But my concern is, here in Brocton, why aren't we having Brocton people do it? It would save us money.
If you could find somebody in Brocton who would take this job, I'd gracefully walk out.
We need volunteers.
We've got some.
Find somebody, I'm willing to go, I don't care. I don't live on this money, I'm helping out, not a biggie.
We've had some too, and they've walked out on us at the last minute. You know, I mean, we've had some treasurers that left us with 8 months of unbalanced checkbooks. And, you know, I mean, Gary's, no offense to Gary, Gary done a great job, but as she said, we never got any records from Gary. No checks and balances was done, you know, I mean, when Gary more than doubled his rate, it brought a lot of that to light, and we felt that we needed to try to do something.
Cheryl does it for about.
But that's, again, you know, we're not on that scope here, and we need to stick to what this meeting's about.
Well, it is kind of the scope in my opinion because it's money. And you know me, because you and I have done this before on the board about budgeting and how we're spending it and where it's going.
Yeah.
There was nothing spent for how many years on anything in the village? We had to tear down buildings, we've had a lot of repairs to do, it all takes money.
And there is receipts for everything. Everything.
You
And I
got
think
something
we did
else?
spend a lot of money on water towers, I mean, the new water system, so whatever her name is there said we haven't done anything wrong. We spent a fortune getting the water
I'm
tower.
talking about tearing down derelict buildings, repairing buildings that needed to be repaired. We've had to repair buildings and items within the village, and that all takes revenue. You know, you're asking where the money is going.
Well, I
No,
don't know how we
we're
purchased this
not even
building
supposed to
from a
be
board
talking
member.
about that. We're on
We've
this
got way
tonight.
away from the agenda. Kirk,
Do you have a number of the cost difference, just say one flush hydrant versus a standard fire hydrant? Have they given you a comparative number?
An
Not
approximate number, but not a definite number yet.
yeah.
Okay.
An approximate number on the total of fire hydrants would be 96,000.
Okay. Chief, have you guys looked at how many actual fire hydrants you think you need versus where you can get away with a flush hydrant?
Yeah, you know, that's what was brought up, that their numbers, and we think that's why the engineers counted replacing the flush hydrants we have already with 6-inch hydrants. I don't need those. What we have now works. So as far as the exact number, there'd be 16 on phase 1 and
13 on the second.
13 on the second phase.
Fire hydrant.
Fire hydrant, actual,
So you're looking at 29 versus what's the engineer saying, 40?
48.
So I don't know what the cost difference is, but a lot of times we see put the flush hydrants where you're not going to have that fire load needed, and that's a huge, that will bring your overall big number down considerably. And I just throw that out there as a starting point of trying to get to a hard number, but if you don't have hard numbers of the difference between the two, I'm in the dark on that.
The only thing we're trying to do is move this project on. You know, my way of thinking right now that we are way too invested in this first part to try to renegotiate the whole entire grant.
So you just throw it away to get it done?
I'm sorry?
Do you just throw it all away just to get it done in a hurry? Or
What am I throwing away?
everything we talked about? It sounds like you're ready to just sign on the dotted line and get it
No,
going.
I think you're reading something in there that's,
You mentioned this as a grant. If it's a grant, are we beyond the ceiling of the grant?
yes. That's the part, you know, it's a matching grant. We have to come up with matching funds for our part of it, and that's where the extra comes in.
Okay, so the 90-some thousand is above and beyond.
Above and beyond our scope at this point, yes.
But changing the number of fire hydrants with flush hydrants makes that number different, doesn't it, Dennis?
It makes the money number different.
Correct.
to the tune of 96,000, yes.
Yes, okay. And we trustees have agreed to pay more than rent than what we've been paying, and you know that.
That's what I thought we were here to do tonight, to figure this all out. But I guess we're here for a question and answer session. Pam?
So are you saying that, the way your grant is written right now, that it can't be changed? All that you're wanting to do is just to come up with an agreement with the fire department, that the grant that you're talking, it's set in stone, basically?
The money part of the grant is, yes. There's only so much money to $500,000 grant.
Sure, but I mean, if we are asking for you to change out 16 fire hydrants and put back fire hydrants, is that even possible? at this
Oh, yeah,
point?
yeah.
Okay,
I'm
okay,
sure.
that was my question, because I didn't, from what I was reading is, no, we have to go with the way they proposed it, or, okay.
Okay, the only question I have to you over that, Pam, was why not do it right? If we're gonna do it, why not put them all back in right?
And when you say right,
Look, what I mean right is instead of having every other fire hydrant a flush hydrant, if the necessity to have a fire hydrant on your corner is as bad as the next corner down, why not put them all in? We have fire hydrants there now, why not replace them all?
But yes, all we're thinking about is replacing them with what's presently there.
What do you, I mean, as
We-
far
we
as your
got
part of
some
the
fire
money, what do you argue? Do you want less, you want to pay
Because
less
it's
money?
less money. No, I'm not arguing about the cost that we were talking about, too.
You know, I don't guess I get what the situation is, you know.
I think what we're asking is, can it be revised to take away the 40-something hydrants that is in this grant?
Why would you do that?
Because why replace one flush hydrant with fire hydrant? We've gone 60 years with this system with fire hydrants we have. The flush hydrants that are new in this town, we don't use them now. So why replace them with a fire hydrant and add that extra cost when we can cut that and get where we need to get?
You're saying, was flush hydrant now, leave flush hydrant, was a fire hydrant, put a fire hydrant?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
We just have to talk to the engineer and see, you know, what they say. I personally think that that's not a great idea, Patty.
I do have a question. As far as the extra cost that you're talking about, is that going to fall back on the citizens of Brocton? I mean, for this, I mean, is that what you're thinking?
Unless Kirk thinks Kansas wants to pay, you guys are gonna have to, yeah, assume the loan.
From my standpoint, my insurance went up over $600 because of the ISO rating, and $50 a month I'm paying extra on insurance. I'm sure I'd be happy to pay an extra $5 for a water bill
Which is exactly what we're looking at,
to
$5
save my house
for water.
and have a fire department.
But if we cut this back,
I mean, I have insurance companies that will not even write properties in this community because there is no responding fire department. And I know they've been all working very, very hard to get it put back to where we were at an 8. And I'm sure they can probably even get it lower because I know they're working really hard at it.
what have they done?
There's,
I don't think that was a bad question. Do you guys think that was a bad
Let's
question?
stay to the agenda. Let's talk. Where are we
What
at?
else is?
Where are we at on the hydrants now?
Okay, do you guys ready to discuss the terms of this now, or what do you guys think? I haven't.
Yeah, I want to know.
So, you want to come back with another proposal here, or what do you want to do? And, you know, I mean, I'm kind of at your mercy, I don't know where we're at here.
Well, we've basically passed it verbally with the 3 changes, which one of them we don't even need, I guess.
Which we've agreed to, so do we just
See, I
rewrite
didn't get
that?
anything, that you were in agreement. That's less here tonight. But I guess if you guys approve it, then we just retype this and we're ready.
Yeah, but shouldn't we take what Mr. Kraft said, and he's a professional, and he set up a lot of
Got it.
red flags.
Do what?
I think he knows a lot of red flags. I mean, I'm sorry, I pronounced your name wrong, I'm so sorry. But he brought up some good things that I think the fire department and we just go back and look at before we sign anything.
Well, that's what I was saying about the verbiage that would, the changes. We've got some changes in there to make.
I think the changes ought to be made on the paper before we ever vote on them. Whether we should.
That's what I'm saying.
I agree.
Well, I agree with that too, that the changes need to be.
Can the verbiage be changed, and then we recess this till tomorrow night and get back together, and
We can do that.
that way you don't have to have 48-hour
Right.
notice. Just all you have to do is recess the meeting and back and forth.
Can we have a meeting where we can just, not allow everybody in, but can we have a meeting where we can discuss this instead of everything else that we've done on? I mean, is that fair?
Be here tomorrow night.
7 o'clock?
Yep.
Okay.
So you're gonna recess till tomorrow night, 7 o'clock?
We're going to recess till tomorrow night, 7 o'clock.
And you guys gonna have a good contract to,
We'll try to.
So Rodney has to make Rodney has to say that we have to recess this, close our meeting.
You just recess it. What time is it now?
So the other things on your agenda that will be tomorrow night, I mean, you don't have to go ahead tonight with that.
No point in doing anything else on the agenda until this is settled. It all has to do with the same thing. Go ahead.
Well, we're coming into this thing knowing that all of these 4-inch hydrants, or the 4-inch stem hydrants, are, the fire department doesn't want. We, as far as we're concerned, we're looking at going back with the 6-inch stemmed fire hydrants.
No, it'll be a 4-inch stemmed hydrant.
You say again?
It will be a 4-inch stemmed hydrant. That's what's in the agreement, 4-inch hydrant. But it will have a 5.5, 5.25?
No, the fire hydrants will be 6.
They will be 6?
Yeah.
Again.
Okay. But then now, we're back and forth here about every other corner now, just being the 6-inch. Now, is that where we're at, or are we replacing all the hydrants with 6-inch?
I don't know.
The flushing hydrants are 4-inch.
Yeah.
The fire hydrants with the 5.25 quart is 6-inch, with a 6-inch column.
Yes, and I thought that's what we were here tonight to discuss. Are we going to put all of the fire hydrants back with the 6-inch hydrants? Yes or no?
I don't know. What do you want to do? Do you want to put that motion out there, or what? I think we need to recess until tomorrow and get the agreement hashed out, and then we'll work on it. Because I personally, my personal belief is, and it's just my personal belief, is I don't think that we should half-ass it. I think it needs to be done right, and all the hydrants put in. Kirk?
I want to echo what you just said, and I'll explain what we did in Kansas from a rescue levy standpoint. When I came on the fire department, we had no rescue equipment. And I was told, well, if we have a car accident, call Charleston or Paris. Well, that doesn't work for the people in my community. We showed them how we could decrease, and I'm pretty sure I still got a copy of the letter. I'd be happy to get it to you, on how we can reduce our ISO rating. And the average was about $165, just coming from a 9 to a 7. If you would adopt a tax referendum, and I'm not saying go to a tax referendum, but what we did is a tax referendum, it was going to cost everybody about an extra $20 a year. And we said, once we buy all of our equipment, we'll get rid of that tax. And we did. 6 years later, we no longer have a rescue tax. We have all our equipment. and a reserve set there. With what you've got here, I recommend go big or stay home. The way to go big is to let everybody know what the dollar figure is and what it's going to take to pay that back over, say, 5 or 6 years, and show them the benefit from just an ISO standpoint. Because if I got to pinch money, yeah, I'm going to do it with a fire hydrant and a flush hydrant. I'm going to isolate where I don't need the GPM versus where I do. But long term, your ISO rating is going to be far better when you've got the bigger connections throughout the whole system. And if people know what that cost is and what it's going to cost for 4 years or 5 years to do that, I think you'll find the community would support you 100%. And it would bring everybody together.
What did you say the water mains were in Kansas?
I've got some that are still 2-inch. When they break, they replace them with 4.
And you still have to give ISO rating.
Well, we're down to a 6, but most of that was picked up. See, 40, like your mayor said, 40% comes from your water system. We didn't get 40%. We didn't get close. So I made it from everything I could do on the fire side, maximum possible, to get what I could, and that's how we were able to drop it to where we're at now. In my rural areas, I'm an 8. So even in the rural areas, we dropped it based on what we were doing just from personnel, training records, pump tests, hose tests, get it all put together. I'll be happy to help you guys do that. It's easy. The first time it's a headache, but it's not that hard to do. And there are solutions, but I'm for always go big or stay home. It's always better in the long run. The challenge is how do you pay for it? We paid for rescue, and our ambulance was the same way. Our village wanted to get rid of the ambulance. We as EMT said, no, we've had an ambulance for 20 years. Why are we getting rid of it? We can't afford it. Well, it turns out the person taking care of the records hadn't sent out a single invoice. $80,000 never got billed for ambulance calls. We took over the ambulance, and that was part of our rescue levy. And we said, here's what we're going to do for ISO. We're going to bring your rates down. It's going to save you approximately this given number. There are some insurance companies that don't. State Farm doesn't recognize ISO. So if you got State Farm, welcome to their world. But we had a 75% passage on the referendum. Who votes for a tax? 75% of the population did, and we stuck to our guns and we dropped it. We got exactly what we needed, solved the problem, and I think whether it be increased water rates, or are you guys sell water, rural water for farmers and ag stuff? You know, you can increase that from a point, but tell people this is a temporary thing. We're not going to stick this forever. If you've done your numbers right, you'll know how many years it takes. I don't know what your water revenues are. But it doesn't typically take that much every month to make that payment. And depending on how your structure is and whether it's you're floating bonds or what you're doing, I don't know. Those are all simple avenues to go big and do it right the first time.
Well, that's what I said. I think it needs to be done right the first time. You know, if we messed up in the original scope, then that's what we're trying to do is correct it. Let me ask you this. I think I asked you this a while ago, but I just want to ask you again. What we're doing here is a good thing, right?
Anytime you upgrade your infrastructure, it's a good thing if you do it right.
So why do we feel like we're being, the bad guys here?
The one thing that's the hard, we see this everywhere we go with public bodies, the unknown. It's a perception of what, if I ask the chief, or I tell him one word, fire truck, and you're supposed to tell the guy next to you. He says fire truck, and you carry that all the way around. We did that in boot camp. By the time we got around to 51 people, the guy down here, he wasn't told fire truck. Okay? I don't know how many have come to the meetings, I don't know how many have read the scope of what you got, but everybody will have their perception based on what they think they heard. And, it's...
Thank you. I appreciate that last words.
And that's just the way it is. And more often than not, it's this type of open discussion and debate and communication that resolves it, as long as it's met with open hearts and open minds. Mine's like a parachute. Works best when it's open.
Amen. I think a lot of the issue is we were under the assumption that 6-inch was going to be put in. And then somehow things got changed and we felt like it was done secretively or behind backs or whatever. Whether that was the case or not, I'm just saying, I think this is how a lot of residents felt, is things were done behind the scenes, or, do you see what I'm saying? And I think that's why people are upset.
You've been to our meetings, and a lot of times, I mean, in the past, you were on the board, you've been to our meetings. A lot of times we get 2 or 3 people. Sometimes we get a packed house like this, but it's very rare. And how do we get the word out there? We put words on Facebook, and the first thing we do is get criticism. You know, how much criticism do you take before you stop putting the printed word? You know, I mean, when you're trying to do something nice for the people, and you're doing a minimal job where you've got very little pay for it or gratitude for it, how long do you continue to do it?
Right.
Right?
I feel, I don't think anybody sitting in this room disagrees with what we're doing water main wise isn't great, because it is. We are upgrading. But instead of going full 100%, we're going 80. We're just wanting to see if there's a way to push that to the full 100% potential of this new water system that we're going to be getting.
My thing is, as long as we can borrow money to put it in 100%, why not put it in 100%?
That's what we're here for.
You know, I believe that we could do this without raising the rates too high. You guys have come up, I mean, I've heard it in there before that some of you will only pay a $50 extra month water bill. What we're talking is nothing like that. Not even close.
Right.
You know,
Well, I don't disagree with the water increase, or the water bill increase. But at the same time, there are individuals and families in this town that are on a fixed income.
I get that, yeah.
So not everybody, I mean, it's not like we can pass a bucket around and say, well, hey, Joe Blow, you can't pay the extra $5 this month for the water bill. I don't want you to feel like we're attacking you and think what you're doing is wrong. As far as water mains, we're happy with that. We're ecstatic about it. I mean, it's a huge upgrade. And I just got done writing a grant, first grant I've ever wrote in my life for the Brocton Fire Protection System, and we're awarded. So I know what worked, and it's probably minute to this grant.
It's work.
It is work. So we appreciate the work the village is doing to try to upgrade our water system. It's like we're trying to cut corners to get it. And that's the way I feel about it. We're trying to cut corners instead of just going the whole 100% to make it perfect. It's like making a bouquet of flowers. Cut a couple roses out. Still a bouquet of flowers, but it's not perfect.
Cole?
I think what Craig's trying to say is, when you signed on as mayor, Dennis, you signed on to help the people of Brocton, correct?
Right.
When I signed on to the white helmet at the fire department, I signed on to help the people of town keep their property and their life safe. You did your part, getting the town new water mains. Now please help us do our part to keep the town safe.
And I'm trying to do that. When you guys come in, have I ever once, one time, have I ever said, no, we're not even thinking, we won't even consider this? Have I ever once said that? No. We said, let's talk about this, let's figure this out. Did we not, John?
Yep.
Kevin? Have we not negotiated with you guys in good faith on this whole thing?
We appreciate that.
And everything that you have requested, everything that you've requested in this agreement, have we been okay with and said, sounds good, makes sense, it's logical? Have we once told you, no, we're not doing that? Other than the key to the water plant? Have we once told you that? So I don't see where people are coming down on us and, you know, trying to say that, you know, we're not trying to negotiate this, because that's what I thought we were doing here tonight. But I'm glad we aired this. And I think we need to do this. And I thought we'd recess till tomorrow night, so. Kirk?
What contractor won the bid, if you don't mind my asking?
B&T, Marshall.
Please be very diligent under the municipal code. You won't find it in there, but there is, it's Illinois statutes on change orders, where you guaranteed a block bottom line number.
Well, we've said from the very beginning that everything's costing us money. The delay, I can guarantee you this delay this week, especially since we've had good weather up till today, it's cost us
Just
something.
mark my words, you watch change orders and we'll come in, there's a provision in the law that change orders can't hit a certain threshold,
Yeah.
but they're notorious for winning bids.
Well,
And the change, and you can go down and look at Clark Acre Rural Water, we've been through this for years. Change order after change order after change order, and if you think that's your bottom line, you're in for a rude awakening. I hate to tell you that, but watch your change orders, because you're gonna get them.
well, we don't have any idea, but I mean, any choice but to have a change order if we're gonna have to provide them with the fire hydrants that they're asking, so we've got to do this.
I understand you'll have that one, but you're gonna have a bunch more. I'm just giving you a heads up.
Well, the thing, the other thing I'm saying is, you can bet your butt, there's a provision in there that they're gonna have this done by a certain date, or they get fined $1,000 a day, or whatever that number may be. I can almost bet that bids we're holding up, that's probably costing us too. That's why I'd like to get this done.
But wasn't this going to be held up anyways? Because I think it was Cheryl that said that it wasn't on the agenda last Wednesday to vote on, for them to start working.
No, it's already been approved, it's ready to start working.
I must have misunderstood.
Yeah, no, it was already taken care of. So, I would like to get out of here, I mean, we're done, right?
Tomorrow, 7.